Alright everybody, welcome back to Praetor Magic. My name is DM Cross, and this is Reflections of the Council. This is our live podcast that we stream every Monday on 9 p.m. Eastern Time at twitch.tv/Praetor Magic. So you're going to notice, first off, there's a card missing on the screen. Rexon is not here. I don't even have my headphones on because I don't have anybody to talk to. So he's not feeling well today. He got sick over the weekend, which is kind of funny because me and Danny got sick over the weekend. Patrick got sick over the weekend. Everybody's sick. But I told Frexine that if he wasn't feeling good, then I didn't want him to try to struggle through doing this. So gave him that off. And I have an idea of something that I think is going to be kind of interesting. Hopefully you guys will all enjoy it. You might hear Danny in the background, because also on top of getting sick, part of our house flooded this weekend. So her craft room, which is normally over there, and where she normally is whenever we're playing or if she's on podcast or whatever, is torn up. And all the stuff, you could probably see some of the stuff around me. I don't know if you can see it like over here or anything, but we have like all her stuff out here. And she's actually behind me on her computer. Wave. Wave.
I did.
Oh, that was a crappy wave. Anyway.
I don't care.
So, you might hear Danny in the background. She's playing a game with some friends, so, it is what it is. I don't have a door to close or anything to, lock her in like a chest or anything like that. Because if I did, I would. Of course, before we get too much into the topic, which I'm going to tell you about, I do want to remind you guys that we are sponsored by our friends over at inkgaming.com. Your game, your style is their motto, and that's because they have custom playmats, dice bags, and all kinds of other things to basically tailor your playing experience to whatever you want. Make sure you use the affiliate code that's either below the YouTube video, the podcast description, or below the stream right now. And make sure that you're using the coupon code Praetor10, Praetor10, to get 10% off your total purchase. And that lets them know that we sent you and helps support the channel and everything that we try to do as far as putting content out for you. You can also, if you want to support us directly, over at patreon.com/PraetorMagic, you can become a patron, or as we call them, a Frexing, basically just for $1 a month. Super cheap. It just helps us out with buying cards and paying for other little things that are coming down the pipeline that hopefully we'll be able to announce and talk about a little bit more frequently. But with that being said, my idea for this week is Danny and I bought a box of Throne of Eldraine, and we opened it, and so it's not going to be an unboxing, first and foremost, don't get excited. But I do want to go over some of the cooler cards that I think we got from the set, just as a way to, kill an hour with you guys, talk about maybe where I would play these cards, or if I think Danny's going to play some of these cards, because there are some cards that I think Danny's going to play that I'm going to hate. Don't laugh, it's not funny.
I don't know what I did.
Okay. I thought she was laughing at me, hearing me talk about how there are cards that I'm going to hate, because she opened at least one of the cards that I know I'm going to hate, and it shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. So I'm just going to go through like the rares and mythics first, because those are obviously the more exciting things. If we get done with that fast enough, I will go over some of the commons and uncommons. So what happened, or what I did with the box, was when I was sorting it by color, I pulled out the cards that I think are going to be the best cards for Commander that we pulled. And I'll go over a few of them and maybe talk about why I think they're good cards, or what kind of decks I plan on putting them in if I already have a plan for them, or something like that. So hopefully pretty fun. Should be at least entertaining. And of course, give your thoughts on, cards, or if there's a card that you think you would put in a deck, feel free to say it in the chat, or, put a comment down below the video for those of you who are going to watch this on YouTube later. So here we go. Oh, wait, actually, one more thing. I talked about this a little bit on Twitter, and I wasn't going to do it because Frexine's not here, but I'm going to do it anyway. I want to start doing something a little bit more in the beginning of these episodes, kind of kick them off. And one idea that I had was doing something called kill on-site analysis, I guess. Basically, we've talked about this before on the podcast. We've talked about this before on the Discord. I've talked about it on Twitter. I've talked about it in EDH Rec. I've talked about it everywhere. There are certain cards that, when played or put onto the battlefield, are, in my opinion, kill on sight. Means do whatever you need to do. If you were at odds with somebody else on the table, that has to be put to the side because you have to deal with this thing. So a lot of times we equate this, or this means more toward commanders, because you telegraph your commander as soon as the game, or right before the game starts, right? So there are certain times, there are certain commanders that are just kill on sight. you don't want them on the field, or you don't want that deck kicking off because it's going to be crazy and you just don't want to have to deal with, or like if they get going, the game's kind of over. So my plan for this was, Phyrexian had no idea this was going to happen. I was going to surprise him and say, hey, think of a kill on sight commander and why it's kill on sight, and then what would you do if you wanted to play that card? Because that's a lot of the thinking behind kill on sights anyway, is a lot of people get excited about these cards and want to play them, and then don't realize that they are a kill on sight card, that they are very, scary to people who know combos and stuff. Like, just as an example, Prosh. A lot of people want to probably play Prosh because he's really strong, he's really cool, and he's a big dragon, and that's awesome. But Prosh is a known combo deck, so if I see Prosh at a table, I'm going to try to kill Prosh every time he comes out, or counter him, or just kill that player before Prosh can come down. One of those things. And if somebody's not equipped to handle that, so if somebody basically can't play up to the hate of Prosh, what do you kind of do? So for this first one, since Phyrexian is not here because he's sick, I'm going to just kind of give what I was going to use as an example for him to kind of give him an idea of how I envision this going. So the kill on sight commander that I always think about every time, damn time, and Valdor's gonna get mad at me. Narset. This card's dumb. It's the worst card ever. Shouldn't have never been printed. Almost as bad as Leovold. Okay, maybe not that bad. But Narset Enlightened Mastered is 3 blue, red, white, human monk, 3/2, first strike, hexproof. That's your first flag. Hexproof on your commander. Already done. Then the big ability is whenever she attacks, exile the top 4 cards of your library. Until end of turn, you may cast non-creatures cards exiled with Narset this turn without paying the mana cost. So I think probably one of the most infamous times of Narset's history is that it used to be part of like a mass land destruction and like big board wipes style game. And it's really hard to do anything about her once she's on the battlefield because of hexproof, and then it's even sometimes hard to do anything about her coming out because she runs in blue. And a lot of times people won't play her until they have the mana to be able to counter something to counter her. So it's too easy to protect her, or like she protects herself just because of the hexproof, but it's just too easy to ramp up as hard as you can and then go off with just attacking once. And then, she's in red, so there's ways to give her haste. She's in red white, so there's ways to make multiple combat steps. And you basically, and she's in blue, so there's extra turn spells. So even if you don't do mass land destruction or something like that, you could do multiple turns. And it's kind of just gross. And like some people do like her because free spells is cool, and I understand that concept, right? Like, what if I just want to play my free like tutors to get enchantments or something like that, or whatever? Because you could honestly do her as an enchantress deck, because it's just non-creature spells until the end of turn. But most of the time, you're gonna have to deal with the fact that like if there's a Narset on the table, people are not gonna want the Narset on the table. That's just the simple reality. As far as what do you do to play this card and deal with the hate, honestly, I think the best way to deal with the hate is to just run a very hard counter package. That way, even if, like, once people do see the cards you're pulling out and they aren't MLD or extra turns, you can kind of lessen up on the counters. But I think for the most part, you have to run a lot of cheap, easy counters with enough ramp to be able to play her and the counters. And basically, you have to almost force people to realize, like, it's not that kind of Narset deck. The only other thing I could think of, and I don't think this is a real answer, is to let people kind of see your deck before the game, like let them actually look through your deck so that they know it's not like, you're not going to bust out Armageddon or anything like that. But again, I don't think that's the right thing to do, because that shouldn't be necessary. But people are people, and people are always going to be worried about the dumbest things. So, but yeah, there you go. Narset, kill on sight. If you're trying to play her, make sure that people can't kill her on sight, which means running enough counter spells to deal with it. So, hopefully, when Phyrexian comes back, depending on if he sees this, if he's watching now, or if he sees it later on, we can maybe surprise him still with this. If not, it is what it is. So, like I said, I'm going to go through the cards going by color. They are kind of alphabetical in terms of what we pulled. Obviously, if there's no A card, then I don't have a card that starts with A. But first card is what I'm talking about when Danny's going to run this thing and I'm going to hate it. Hushbringer. It's a mono white fairy. Costs 1 and a white. It's a 1/2 flying lifelink. Creatures entering the battlefield or dying don't cause abilities to trigger. Why do people hate Magic? Why do people just hate fun? I don't understand. We needed another Torpor Orb, except this one now shuts off dying creatures. So, I always talk about how much I hate, like, I feel like Wizards is kind of like nerfing Reanimator by, one, printing a lot of Grave Hate lately. Two, a lot of the reanimating type stuff that I have seen printed have been like you have to exile cards in order to do it, like Kethis, for example, right? So you have to exile in order to reanimate, or you have to exile the card and you get like a token copy of it, like Gyrus was for last year's Commander Precon. And I hate that because obviously it's meant to kind of nerf Reanimator so that you can't just recur it constantly. But it just seems like it's so hard against Reanimator players. Cards like this, like they just keep coming out with these, and they're always like so low costed cards. It's a 2-drop. I mean, it's a creature, so luckily it's easy to get rid of. But I just, why do we have to constantly make me not like playing the game anymore? I just want to play Magic, man. I just want things to die, because everything should die in Magic, and then it should just come back. What's wrong with that? I don't understand. All right, next one, of course. We like to talk about commanders, so legendary creatures we're very excited for. Linden, the Steadfast Queen, white, 3/3, vigilance, human noble. Whenever a white creature you control attacks, you gain 1 life. This is a card I could see Danny slotting into like Heliod, personally. She likes to gain life. It deals with white creatures, and Heliod's meant to bump out white clerics. It's a relatively easy to play spell in that deck because there's not that many colorless lands that, you know, don't either find other lands or whatever. So it's just, it's one of those things where it's like incidental life gain. I think a lot of people won't care about Linden until they realize that Danny's at like 60 life or something. And then she plays It's a Flux Reservoir or something else equally dumb. And she just kills somebody out of nowhere. Or she just survives long enough to approach twice because she's awful. Not paying attention. Okay, cool. Just want to make sure. But yeah, I talked about it on the podcast a couple episodes ago. Linden's probably one of the like least interesting legendary creatures to me, but it does what Danny kind of wants to do, and I guess I like it for another reason. It incentivizes combat because a white creature has to attack, so I'm always down for that kind of stuff. But yeah. Ooh, yeah, this next card. So, Worthy Knight. We opened a couple of these, and I like it because it's similar to Hero of Precinct 1 from the Ravnica set. It is 1 in the white, it's a human knight, it's a rare, it's a 2/2, and whenever you cast a knight spell, create a 1/1 human creature token. So it doesn't even create like extra knights or anything like that, so it's not super crazy or overpowered, but I liked the fact that I like tribal synergies for one, and I like this effect. I liked it again when Hero of Precinct 1 came out, where I think it was every time you play like either a monocolored spell or a multicolored spell, you get a human or something like that. Whatever it was, I just like that effect. It's very young pyromancer-y, and I like young pyromancers, so I like this card. I don't know that I will run this in a deck. I don't know if we eventually get like all the precons, if I'm gonna like make a Sir Gwen deck or anything like that. But it's still cool. There's so many cool knights in this set of all colors. It almost makes me want to rerun my Silesian Knights idea from a while ago, maybe with a different commander. For those of you who didn't see this episode, the very first video of Praetor Magic was Danny, John, and I playing a game of Commander, a 3-person Commander game where we built tribal jank stuff, where John played walls, Danny played archers, and I played knights in green-white with Sidar Kondo. It is the worst game in the entire history of Arcane because it's literally like Sidar Kondo's like, hey, your 2 or less power creatures are basically unblockable except for flying and reach. Okay, well Danny's playing archers, so they all have reach. Like one of the first things Jean did was find a way to discard like Wonder, so all his walls had flying. I was like, oh, so my whole game plan just gone completely. Like I thought I was gonna be cool and clever and crafty and all that other nonsense, but now I'm just not. Thanks, guys. So as far as rares, that was it for the white cards that I'm super excited about. We got a couple others that I don't think are necessarily like the coolest cards ever. But for blue, Stolen by the Fae. I was excited about this card when it got previewed. We got 2 of these? Yeah, we got 2 of these. It's X and blue, it's a rare, it's a sorcery. Return target creature with converted mana cost X to its owner's hand. You create X 1/1 blue fairy creature tokens with flying. I like this in, obviously, fairy decks. I like, you're basically playing to make the fairies and then just get something out of the way. The only thing that I ever didn't like about this card was that it's the converted mana cost has to be equal to X. It's not X or less. So like you can't pay 6 to get a 4-drop off the field. You have to pay only 4. So it kind of restricts how many fairies you can make. So God forbid you wanted like a 1/1 or a 1-drop off the field. That's like 3 mana. Yay, I get rid of the 1-drop and I get 1 fairy. That's obviously not super stellar. So it's just not as flexible as I guess I would like it to be. But again, that's probably like a balancing thing. You probably don't want it to be that super good because then people do just pay like 10 into and then just like they can get rid of anything and get 10 fairies. So you then 1 for 10 somebody, you get rid of 1 body for 10 bodies to come onto the battlefield. So obviously it can't be super strong, otherwise it would be bad. But yeah, I think it'll still be kind of cool if you're running like a Flyers deck or a Fairy deck, or even if you just need blockers. I mean, they're flying blockers. That's never technically bad, I guess. But yeah, ironically, those are the only 2 blue rares that we got. Mono blue rares, anyway. So, next card, as we go into black, that I'm super excited about. Yara, First of Locthwain. She is a elf noble rare. She's a 2/3. She costs black, black, black. Whenever she or another black creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. And then you can tap her, sacrifice another black creature to draw a card. So she's basically like a Death Greeter effect for just you. I think Death Greeter was if an opponent's creatures enter the battlefield, you can make them pay 1. So this is if you can make creatures, then you can ping everybody for 1. It's ping everybody for 1. So Death Greeter was just that player. So it's actually a much better Death Greeter effect. So token decks, I don't want to do like the traditional zombie deck because she's mono black, but in tokens that seems like a really good idea. I forget who did it. I think Mudsta on Commander Clash did Ayara with like a rat stick, so made like a lot of rat decks or a lot of rat tokens. So like Piper of the Swarm and stuff like that to just basically make as many tokens that way as possible. That's probably a pretty cool thing. And then like again, you can sacrifice your tokens to draw cards. If you put it together with Thornbite Staff, I think it just kind of is crazy then. If you have any way, Ogre Slumlord is whenever a creature dies, right? A non-token creature, right? Let's check that. Whenever another non-token creature dies, you can get a rat. Okay. Because I was about to say, Thornbite Staff and Slumlord would just go infinite if it wasn't for non-token, so that's really good. That it doesn't go infinite. You don't really need it to die. That would just be bad. I'm not sure about this next one. Clack Bridge Troll, which apparently they don't have the high res art, it doesn't look like. But rare, it's a troll, it's mono black, it costs 3 black black. It's an 8/8 trample haste. So that's pretty cool. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent creates 3 0/1 white creature tokens. White goat creature tokens. At the beginning of combat on your turn, any opponent may sacrifice a creature. If that player does, tap the troll, you gain 3 life, and you draw a card. So it's very much like what's that old demon? Is it Indulgent Tormentor? Where like you could basically pay to sacrifice a creature or pay life to tap it so that it won't hit you in the face kind of thing. So it's a similar effect to that. I think it's actually though a much upgraded one because they cost about the same. This is got much better stats as it's an 8/8, and I think Indulgent Tormentor, if that's even the right card, is a 5/5 or a 4/5. It does have flying as opposed to trample, but like now you also have haste on the black creature, and it's gaining you life and drawing you a card, not just the tapping it and drawing a card. So like you get a little bit of life back too with it. I don't think there's too much of a downside. The creating the goat tokens, it's just giving your opponents ways to basically give you a card. So I think it's probably pretty good. It'll probably be pretty. I don't know. It depends, I guess, on your meta. If your meta is the kind to, I guess, run too much removal, maybe it just won't do anything. But who knows? There's so many like strictly night synergistic cards that it's hard to get super excited about it outside of limited or standard, unless you're like going to run a night tribal deck. Piper of the Storm, we opened up one of these. It is, again, black rare, human warlock. Warlock, woo! Cost 1 in the black. Rats you control have menace. For 1 in the black, tap it. Create a 1/1 black rat creature token. For 2 black, tap it. Sacrifice 3 rats. Gain control of target creature. Again, like, it's one of those cards where it seems really unimportant at first glance. Like someone's gonna play it and everybody's gonna be like, "Who cares? Whatever. It doesn't really matter." And then out of nowhere, you're gonna like take control of somebody's commander. I love that it doesn't have the clause of like, "Oh, it you gain control of it until you lose Swarm of the Piper." Swarm of the Piper, Piper of the Swarm. So like some of the older steel effects or even some blue steel effects will do stuff like that where like if you lose control of the creature that gave you the stolen card, then you also lose control of the stolen thing. So it doesn't have that. I like it. It takes a little bit of build up if you don't have any other ways of making rats, but again, if you're in a rat deck with like over Slumlord and other stuff, then you probably can get it going fairly quickly. At least I think so. That's actually it for the black cards too. And getting into red, Fires of Invention. I know Stephen Green was really big on this card during Commander Versus, so it is a rare red enchantment. It costs 3 in a red. You can cast spells only during your turn, and you can cast no more than 2 spells each turn. Instantly seems kind of bad because why would you ever want to do that? Why would you ever want to restrict yourself? But then the bottom ability says you may cast spells with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of lands you control without paying their mana cost. So it's kind of super cool because you can still, like, if you have a lot of mana rocks or if you have a lot of treasure tokens, you can still play stuff that's larger than how many lands you have. But if not, then uh you can just play them for free if all you have are things that cost lower than the lands that you have. It's one of those things where I know Stephen Green was super big on this card. I'm not sure how good it is because of the 2 spells each turn.
Oh, do I want to use it?
And regulating yourself to basically sorcery-ish speed. It's not 100% sorcery speed because you can still respond at instant speed, but after you give up your turn, like that's it. You can't do anything with it. You can't do anything else except activated abilities. So maybe in the right kind of deck where like maybe blue red because there are some like blue wizards that allow you to counter spells. I don't like the idea of having absolutely no interaction. That seems bad. So, me personally, I'm not super crazy about it, but people talk like it could be really good. I don't know. I don't know. Oh. Oh, cool. The only card that has opportunistic in the name is the card I wanted to talk about. Opportunistic Dragon. Obviously, rare dragon, red, 4/3 flyer for 2 red. When it enters the battlefield, choose target human or artifact an opponent controls. For as long as opportunistic dragon remains on the battlefield, gain control of that permanent, it loses all abilities and it can't attack or block. So it's kind of like a really weird threat effect. I like the idea that it's not just. I don't like the fact that it's just target human, because obviously that's very limiting. Even though humans are obviously very big deal in most of Magic, I would imagine. It's one of those things where you probably don't think about it until you go to steal somebody's card, and it's like, oh, like all your cards are humans. That's weird, but whatever. Um, but the ability to steal an artifact and then strip it of its abilities and the attack or block thing kind of doesn't matter. Obviously, you're supposed to either sacrifice it or just hold on to it forever so that they can't get it back and get whatever the benefit of running it is. But I don't know. Overall, I'm not like, hey,
Nice.
I need to see if it works. It's still a 4/3 flyer for 4 mana that allows you to steal something from somebody. So basically, like, it's basically like a 2-for-1. You get a creature, but you also take something away from somebody, whether it's a creature or an artifact. I mean, even if you just take away somebody's soul ring, then you level the playing field, I guess. So I think it's kind of like a weird tempo-ish card for red, but I don't know. Moving to green, and I'm going to change this because of raisins. I'm really bad at this. There we go. So I specifically wanted to bring this up. It's Lovestruck Peace. It's 2 and a green. It is a Beast Noble, 5/5. It can attack unless you control a 1/1 creature, and it also has the adventure mechanic. So the sorcery side is Heart's Desire for 1 green mana. Create a 1/1 white human creature token. The reason why I had to take a minute and bring up the art specifically is because we opened up 2, and one of them is the regular art, and then the other one is the alternate art. And I was so excited because we got the alternate art, and I love this art. It's actually now the background on my computer. Can I show it, kind of, sort of? Yeah. Oh no, I guess you guys can't really see it. But yeah, it is actually the background on
That's just me. Oh wait, that's
my
wait,
home computer. Okay, there we go. Sorry, move the screen. Had to put it back. So, again, like, so this one personally has nothing to do with Commander. I just like this card because of the art. I could see myself trying to put it into a deck just for dumb reasons. I don't know. Like, if I were to, first of all, if I were to do the whole fairy tale deck, this would 100% go into it. Probably with like the Beloved Princess card, because that's a 1/1 human, or it's a 1/1 creature. It doesn't even matter. And then that would be the Bell to the Beast, right? So, again, that deck would not be designed to be like super optimal or anything crazy like that. It would just be to be like my favorite fairy tale cards from the set that translate into like movie references or just story references or whatever, what have you. So this card I'm not sure about. I think this card is really good for standard. It's Once Upon a Time. It's a rare instant. It costs 1 green. If this spell is the first spell you've cast this game, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. I think it's a really cool spell. There's obviously better green ramp, but it's one of those things where I think it's really good in standard, but I also think it's kind of a trap in Commander where people are going to keep hands that have 1 less mana than they would want to start with, because it's a free spell if it's your first spell. So like, you don't even have to play a land, you just have to play this and hopefully dig for your next land. And going down 5 cards it's a pretty good amount. I mean, on average most effects like this go 4 or 3, I think. So going down 5 cards is actually pretty good. I do feel like people will see this card and basically be like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to keep my next land. And then lo and behold, their next land is like 12 cards down and they've kept this bad hand. And now what do you do? So I see people using it. I don't know if it's going to be good for those people. I mean, I hope that doesn't happen. The worst thing ever is to have like a non-game where everything just, it's kind of like one person just kind of sits there and does nothing. But yeah. But speaking of cards that are going to see play, Return of the Wild Speaker. I was really excited to see one of these pop up. It is a rare instant, costs 4 and a green. It's an instant. That's one of the things that I think makes me the happiest. Choose one. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures you control, or non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 until end of turn. So it's like either a baby Overrun or a baby Rishkar's expertise. Like in green, you're going to have a lot of non-human creatures on the battlefield, so I don't think like you're going to lose out on value between this and Rishkar's. Obviously, Rishkar's has the put a 5 drop down or play a 5 drop card. So you're obviously going to miss out there a little bit, but this being instant speed, which Rishkar's is not, right? No, Rich Card's Expertise costs 1 more and is a sorcery. So it's not a bad variant. I think it's got a place in Commander. You can run them both if you just want to be super, greedy with your hand. Which in Magic, yes,
So how
you
did you
should
get
want
more
to be
people? How do you
super
get
greedy
more
with your
people?
hand. That's a thing you should
Are
want to
you-
do. This next card, as we get into artifacts, so I did this kind of weird. I did the artifacts, even if they were colored artifacts, because there were so many colored artifacts, I just put them all as artifacts. So if that bothers you, because I should have talked about it when it was a blue card, because technically it's a blue card, but it's an artifact. I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. This one's weird. I don't know if it's
Yeah, I
good
didn't know that.
or
So I
not.
was like, is there another way to buy them or not?
I like the design of it. It's Midnight Clock. It is a blue artifact. It's a rare. It taps out of blue. It costs 2 and a blue. And for 2 and a blue, you can put an hour counter on Midnight Clock. At the beginning of each upkeep, put an hour counter on Midnight Clock. When the 12th hour counter is put on Midnight Clock, shuffle your hand and your library in your hand and your graveyard into your library, then draw 7 cards. Exile Midnight Clock. So it is kind of like a reset. I feel like I want this in like my Muldrotha deck because I tend to draw a lot of cards, and if I don't get to the win con, then I could potentially mill out, and I've actually milled out with the deck before. So I feel like I kind of just want it. It's also a mana sink that's really important. You don't have to tap it to put the hour counter on, and you can just let it. At the end of turn, you can just dump 3 mana into it, and then get a counter, and then get a counter on your upkeep. So, it's each upkeep. It's not your upkeep. So this is what, 3 rotations in a 4-person game? That's not bad, actually. Especially if you do play it late. And again, in Muldrotha, like even if you have milled it, you get to play it again. So you get to play from your graveyard, I should say. Muldrotha is obviously out on the field. So worst comes to worst, for a few turns, it's a mana rock. And you have the potential of resetting basically whether you've milled too much or anything like that. I think I do like it. I think I do like it for Muldrotha decks as a safety net, and some other decks just as like a safety, like I said, like a safety net. So any kind of self mill decks, I think you run it just to kind of make sure. And worst comes to worst, let's say you don't have 7 cards in your hand, or let's say you played a lot of cards that you want back and you don't have any kind of recursion. At least they go back into your library and you can try, and you're going to draw 7, so you're going to get a hand back. And you have a chance of drawing into them again. Or if you have tutors, you have a chance of tutoring them again. You just couldn't get them because they were in your graveyard. So I do think it's a really great card. Now that I like read it fully and fully understand what it's doing. So I'll probably put it in something and report back on whether or not it was good. I've said before, I said it on the podcast when we talked about these cards, but the legendary artifact cycle, there's only like really 2-ish that I'm excited for. The black one is not one I'm excited for, and we're going to talk about it anyway, because we did open it. The Cauldron of Eternity costs 10 black. It's obviously a legendary artifact, and it's a mythic. It costs 2 less to cast for each creature card in your graveyard, so in, again, Muldrotha, it's probably pretty easy to cast this for just black. Whenever a creature you control dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library. That's kind of the thing that line just messes me up so bad. For 2 and a black, tap it, pay 2 life, return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, activate this ability only time you could activate a sorcery. Even the sorcery line doesn't bother me as much as that middle line where it's creatures you control die, put them on the bottom. Again, if you're in like a Grenzo deck, great. But outside of that, I can't think of too many times where you want in mono black if you care about your creatures dying, because like it feels counterproductive. The bottom ability I guess counterproductive. The bottom ability wants you to have creatures in your graveyard. The cost reduction wants you to have creatures in your graveyard. But then the middle ability says no, stop doing that. So eventually you won't have creatures to bring out of your graveyard unless you're self mill. That's the only other time that I could see, because if you're self mill, obviously your creatures are not dying. Or maybe discard 2. I guess. Maybe it does have more places than I think. Because like now I'm thinking of like chainer decks. You can discard a card to play a creature. Like let's say you have 6 mana, you have a 3-drop in your graveyard, and you have a 7-drop in your hand. You discard the 7-drop, play the 3-drop, pay 3 and tap, and pay 2 life to get the 7 drop onto the battlefield. I guess there is some value in it. I didn't. It's really dependent on the deck. I think Chainer decks will probably like it. I think maybe again Muldrotha decks, because you just get so many creatures into your library. I mean, into your graveyard from your library, and you could probably cast them for pretty cheap. But then again, if a creature does die, you don't get that back. So I guess it depends on how you play Muldrotha. If you do a lot more self mill, like a lot of the ways I do it is like wheel effects, so like windfall and stuff like that, and a couple other ways. But no, I guess a lot of it is sacrifice. Yeah. So Sidisi Brood Tyrant, that's probably a good one, because that is obviously self mill. She mills you 3 when she enters the battlefield, and then 3 again whenever she attacks. And for every time a creature, one or more creatures, goes into the graveyard that way, you get a zombie. So now you're getting zombies, and you can then bring the creatures back, which obviously she normally has a few cards to do that anyway, but this is just another one. And again, with CDC being so much self-mill, you're going to get creatures into the graveyard fairly easily, and then you're going to get your cost reduction. Because if you mill 3 creatures, you only get 1 zombie, but then you take 6 off the converted mana cost of this. So I guess it's pretty good in that deck too. Decent draw-off decks, maybe? I don't know, because you tend to want to sack your zombies. Maybe Ghoul Colored Geisha decks? Or Geisha deck? Geisha decks? That way you can sacrifice your big dumb creature, get it back onto the bottom of your library, and then maybe do some kind of shenanigans where you tutor it back out or whatever. Or it just means that you're not down a creature technically, because it did go back into your library. Maybe. This next one, however, I'm much more excited about. We pulled not 1, but 2 of the Great Hinch. One of them is Foyle. I will probably never get to see that one in a deck of mine, because wife.
Oh,
no. So it is a legendary green artifact. It's a mythic. It's a 7 green. It costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. This is not like the Return of the Wild Speaker, where it is dependent on being a non-human. It's just whatever. However your biggest creature is, you reduce it by that much. So if you have a 7/7, it costs green. And then guess what? You could tap it to add green. You can also gain 2 life from that. Or you will, not you can. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on it and draw a card. That's dumb. That is so dumb. I mean, it is obviously very in line with how green draws cards, which is based off of creatures, and that's fine. The very first time I read that card, I thought it was based solely on whenever you use the mana from the Great Henge to cast a creature, but that's not the case. It's just put it down there, and even if it never taps for mana, which would be silly, because you obviously get 2 mana and gain life, you just get to draw cards every time you cast a creature. And then it's a mana rock, and then it's a way to gain life. Like, this card is just ridiculously good. And luckily we opened 2, because I'm gonna steal 1, and I'm gonna steal the foil one.
No, you're not.
She's paying attention now. I don't like it.
I can hear you. I'm in the same room as you.
Unfortunately, go in your own room.
I wish. This chair is not comfortable.
I told you to go get your chair and wheel it out. Alright, she's gonna make me do that. This next card, ironically, has to deal with artifacts and enchantments, even though it is not one itself. It's Dance of the Manse. I think this card's very good. It's X white blue. It's a rare sorcery. Return up to X target artifact and or non-aura enchantment cards, each with converted mana cost X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If X is 6 or more, those permanents are 4/4 creatures in addition to their other types. So in any kind of enchantress or artifact deck that's running white and blue, I think you use this. That way you have a really good way to recur things. If you don't want your stuff to be creatures, you could just pay 5 as X. If you don't care and you just want a big battlefield, you can just pay as much as you want, 6 or more, and they all become 4/4s. I don't see this as, I don't understand how this is ever, not going to be an include from this point on in artifact and enchantment decks with these colors. because it's just really good. The worst thing is if somebody obviously counters it, you paid 8 mana. I'm just gonna assume X is 6. You paid 8 mana into nothing, but I mean, if somebody counters your Cyclonic Rift, you paid 7 mana and you're probably dead. So, yeah. It goes right to the battlefield. It's not back in your hand. It's not like their total converted mana cost has to be X or less, so that's really good. So you could literally bring back 6 drops. So 36 mana worth of cards coming back for 8 mana. That's like, that's a crazy value rate. This next one, some people have been talking about this card a little bit. It's Escape to the Wilds. I am still not sure 100%. So it's green, red, and I'm sorry, 3 green, red. It is a rare sorcery. Exile the top 5 cards of your library. You may play cards exiled this way until the end of your next turn. You may play an additional land this turn. The first time I read this, I did not realize it said until the end of your next turn. So I completely missed that part, and that was just that makes a huge difference. So if it's end of your next turn or end of this turn, massive difference. The playing additional land this turn is kind of whatever. The exile is kind of whatever. 5 cards down, 5 mana for 5 cards down. Playing cards as opposed to casting spells is massively important, because if you do happen to hit 5 lands, that really stinks, but at the very least you can get a land. If you haven't played a land this turn, you can get a second land, and then next turn you can get a third land. So 5 mana, ramp 3. Obviously not what you want to do with this kind of a card, but it's also not the end of the world. I mean, what is it? The 5 mana kicker spell, grow from the ashes or something. That only gets you 2 lands. Granted, they're untapped. I mean, they would be untapped in this too, depending on if they're enter the battlefield tapped or not lands, because you're just playing them. It doesn't. This card obviously doesn't dictate that. So I want to say it's really good. I don't know. I gotta see it. I gotta see it in action. Alright, next one is Feyburrow Elder. This is one that I opened, which I think it's a pretty cool card. We've seen these effects before, and I just like the way the card works. It's a Tree Folk Druid. It's a 0/0, but it gets +1/+1 for each color among permanents you control. So even if you just play this card in a green-white deck, it's a 2/2. Has Vigilance, it costs 1 green-white, and it taps for each color among permanents you control, add 1 mana of that color. So again, if you play this in a green-white deck, it taps for green-white. So it essentially almost pays for itself. If you play this in obviously a green-white and 1 other color, so a Naya deck or a Bant deck or an Abzan deck, it does pay for itself. Obviously not the same turn. And then it's also a 3/3. 3/3 with Vigilance, so you're able to attack and also use it as a mana dork for instant speed stuff or just stuff on your second main phase. And I just think it's a solid card. It's a 3-drop that is going to be at least a 2/2, because again, it's got 2 mana. 3-drop 2/2 Vigilance, taps for 2 mana. Seems like really good return for what you're putting into it. So yeah, it's gonna be really good. I imagine Danny would find this or find a home for this in like some kind of deck of hers. I don't see myself putting this in like Kethis or anything, and I think that's the only green-white deck I'm running at the moment.
White?
Yeah, it's green-white.
Sorry.
But yeah, I see this in some decks somewhere. Alright, hold on. Is that still good? There we go. The reason, again, why I bring up this particular art of Garruk Curse Huntsman is because it's the one that we opened. The extended border. It's so pretty. That's so pretty. Alright, so he is obviously a Garruk Planeswalker. He's a mythic. He comes down with 5 loyalty. He costs 4 black, green. His 0 ability is to create 2 black and green wolf creature tokens with, when this creature dies, put a loyalty counter on each Garruk you control. His -3 is to destroy target creature and draw a card. And his -6 is you get an emblem with creatures you control get +3/+3 and have trample. So your emblem is overrun constantly. It only takes one activation I'm sorry, it only takes one more loyalty to get that. And if you put the wolves out and keep him around and have a way to either kill both wolves or sacrifice it, you get to ult him and then keep him around. That's pretty cool to try to, I guess, get multiple emblems. If anybody lets you do that, you're probably already winning that game. But I don't know, like I can easily see putting this in actually my Muldrotha list, because giving everything +3/+3 and trample fairly easily is kind of like an extra win con. That's not the win con in my Muldrotha deck, is to just hit people with big creatures. But I mean, I make bats in that deck, I make zombies in that deck, I make a couple other tokens in that deck. So like if I'm just, my bats are now 4/4 flying trample bats. Yeah, that's a win con, right? Like that is a way to end out games. So this next card, John and I actually talked about this, and again, I'm not sure it's going to be super great as far as a commander card, but I will probably try to run it in some kind of deck because it's dumb. It's Outlaw's Merriment. It's a mythic enchantment. It costs John's in the chat saying it's the best. It's 1 red, white, white. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose one at random. Create a red and white creature token with those characteristics. It's either a 3/1 human warrior with trample and haste, a 2/1 human cleric with lifelink and haste, or a 1/2 human rogue with haste, and when this creature enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to any creature. So, yeah, this is Robin Hood and his merry men. I just think it's a really funny card more than anything, and in a token deck, I guess. Whether it's, I don't know if you would put it in like, I mean, you obviously can put it in Boros tokens. A Naya deck would be pretty cool, and we just had Naya token decks galore in the precon. But that way, because if you can make multiple tokens at a time, so imagine getting like 3/3/1 human warriors with trample haste or the clerics or whatever, like that could be kind of cool. And it's a 4-drop, so it's not like super expensive. Assemble the Legion is what, like a 5-drop, right? Yeah, Assemble the Legion is a 5-drop, and it takes a little while for it to get going, and it's a big target because people are gonna be like, no, we don't want you to have 50 million tokens in 2 more turns. So this is a little bit slower, so that makes it a little bit easier to pass it over, which again sometimes can be stronger. I think not stronger, but it can be deceptive, I guess, is a way to put it.
Yep.
Then the next cool card that we opened, the Royal Scions. What? So we didn't just open one, we opened 2, and one of them's Foyle. How cool is that? It's very cool. So, in tradition of Wizards printing 3-mana Planeswalkers, they printed another couple of those in this set. The Royal Scions are Rowan Planeswalker, so obviously they're mythic. They are 1 a blue and a red. The +1 ability is to draw a card, then discard a card, so to loot. Its other +1 abilities, target creature gets +2/+0 and gains first strike and trample until end of turn. So a little bit more aggressive as opposed to being defensive. And -8 is to draw 4 cards. When you do, the Royal Scions deal damage to any target equal to the number of cards in your hand. And it does come down with 5 loyalty, I think I said, but just in case, 5 loyalty. It's another one of those where I think it's underestimated. Like, the loot effect is pretty good. The boost is kind of like whatever-ish. It's for obviously more aggressive attacks. So, you know, more aggressive plays. So it's kind of weird that it doesn't defend itself, but it's a 5-man. It's a 6 loyalty Planeswalker for 3, because you're gonna plus it. Obviously, there's no minus ability. That's another thing too. Like it has 2 pluses. That seems really good. Every time I see something like this, because I think the new Saheeli from the precon, not new Saheeli, I guess now, but from the precons last year, had this same thing where it has plus and plus. I just I don't know. I just think for some reason that that's almost a little bit broken. Personally, I think that might just be um almost a little bit too strong. But either way, I mean, Sahili didn't break command or anything like that, so I guess I'm wrong. But with that being said, so that's all the rares. We did get obviously some of the rare lands. We got the green castle, the blue castle, and the black castle. I gotta say, actually, for the castles, so looking at them, I guess I will go over them. I wasn't going to because I wasn't like super excited about them, but let's look at them because I do as I go to say things about them. So Castle Garinbrig is the green one. It's a rare land and enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a forest. Not a basic forest either. So if you have if your first land is like any one of the green shocks or whatever, you have a forest. It taps for a green. For 2 green, tap it, add 6 mana. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells or activate abilities of creatures. People on Twitter kind of went nuts about this at me for a little bit because I was like, alright, whatever, you get 1 more mana. Great. It's restricted mana, right? So, yay. Whatever. I'm not super excited about it. I don't. Like, it's not bad. It's not obviously a negative, but it's also just, like, for a rare. It's a rare land. And you get 1 more mana. And then you have to cast creatures or activate the abilities of creatures. I don't know. I don't see that being super strong. And then people tried to like come up with scenarios for it, like to basically like, I guess like beat down my opinion. I'm like, yeah, none of those things are super strong. Maybe in other formats, I don't know, but in Commander, like getting 1 more mana, like we do that constantly. I just Soul Ring's not rare. I'm just saying, it's Soul Ring rare. Castle Octane is the black one. Obviously, it enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a swamp, and it taps for black. For 1 block black, draw a card, then you lose life equal to the number of cards in your hand. I get the whole that black's supposed to be the color of ambition and pays life to do things, but like there are just so many better effects to draw cards, especially in a black deck where because you are drawing so many cards, you should be able to have a decent sized hand. Like this just seems not good. You can what Underworld Connections, right? Yeah, Underworld Connections is a 1 black enchantment aura. You put it on a land, and then all you have to do is tap and pay 1 life to draw a card. It is also a rare. I mean, granted, it's an enchantment, so it can be more easily and freely targeted without, people like, oh, you blew my enchantment. That's obviously not going to be a big sticking point through most games, whereas if you start blowing up lands, people are going to get a lot more angry. But in the end, I just don't see that being, like, that much better. I think that life gain or that life loss is going to add up way too easily. Castle Vantress is the blue one, so again, tapped unless you control a island. It taps 4 blue, and for 2 blue, tap it, you get Scry2. I actually think this one is better than the other ones because you kind of just leave it up, and if you're going to leave mana up anyway, and you're a blue player, so I assume you're going to do that just to have interaction instead of letting the mana go to waste. If nobody does anything that you need to interact with, you just kind of pull it into this scry and kind of filter your hand. I think that's honestly stronger than draw 1 card for 4 lands, and I get that this is 5 lands. So 4 lands, draw a card, and then lose a bunch of life. I just don't think is any better than just paying 5 to filter. Again, especially if your deck is dependent on being interactive, so therefore you're going to leave up mana quite often. If you are not running a deck that leaves up a lot of mana, then I would say don't run it. But I do think this is better than definitely the black one. And the green one, again, I don't get super excited about at all. And the last rare land, just because we did all the other ones, was Fabled Passage. You sacrifice it, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. Then if you control 4 or more lands, untap that land. So it's kind of like a later Evolving Wilds or Terramorphic Expanse in the sense that the land you get might come in untapped. If it's, again, like after turn 4 or 5, depending on how much you ramp. So, I can see this one probably going to wind up seeing a lot of play just because we like to fetch out lands. And the possibility of it coming in untapped is pretty cool. It's simple, it's easy. You don't really need to get too much more into detail than that. So, and that's all of them. That, I mean, again, there were some rares that, like, you know, Acclaimed Contender, where it's mostly about Tribal Knights. Giant Killer, which is an adventure card, which I just don't see being like super crazy good or anything like that. Brazen Borrower, which is a bounce effect, and then it's a flash flying blocker that can only block flying creatures. So stuff like that. I am not as excited. Oh, one thing else that we did get one each of the uncommon legendary creatures. So Sir Alan, Sir Eleonora? Yeah, Eleonora. Got it right. Obviously Sir Conrad, Sir Kara, and Sir Farron, and then Gumgully, the goblin. So we got one each of them, two of the green one, and the black one. Obviously the black one's really good for me, Sir Conrad. Sir Conrad the Grim being 3 black, he's an uncommon human knight. He's a 5/4 whenever another creature dies or a creature card is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent. And for 1 of the black, each player puts the top card of their library into their graveyard. Going in Muldrotha. Nobody should be surprised. And I'm probably going to kill people with this card at least a couple times. So, said the white one I wasn't super excited about. The blue one I was excited about in the sense that it is at least an aggressive commander for blue, in which case its power is equal to the number of cards in your hand, and that then will hopefully inspire you to be punching people in the face a lot because you want no maximum hand size and a huge hand, and then punch people in the face for a lot of mana, or for a lot of damage all at once. The green one is kind of like it builds up and gives a bonus. Hold on. Maybe I'm wrong. Sir Farron the Hinch Hammer is green. He's a 2/2 human knight. Whenever he attacks another creature, another target attacking creature gets +X where X is Sir Farron's power. Yeah. So, again, not that that's not a cool ability, but it's an ability we've seen on so many green cards in the past that to put it on, to like use this opportunity to put it on an uncommon legendary creature, like we could have done something a little bit cooler. Especially like, look at Sir Kara, look at Sir Eleonora, look at Sir Conrad. Those are all new-ish cool abilities, or at least a new take on some abilities, because Sir Conrad's not like the newest idea, but it's a twist, and it's more powerful than some of the other effects like that. Eleonora seems really different. Sir Kara, very different. Why couldn't we have done that with green and white? But we're getting into a different topic for a different day. So that is a majority of our pulls in terms of legendary creatures and then the rares. I didn't have time to go through all the uncommons and commons, so it is what it is. But yeah. Maybe if Phyrexian is not feeling better next Monday, or maybe somewhere down the line, I will again pull out the stack of commons and uncommons that I pulled out of the box pulls specifically for Commander. That was the thing that I had to look at it and basically say, would I play this in a deck? And then what kind of deck would I play it in? Because if it's not a deck I can imagine myself building, then it's not for me for Commander. And then I obviously had to do that trying to think of how Danny plays. So yeah, that's going to be it for this one. We did go to a full hour. I was actually worried because at first I was talking really, really fast, and I did not think we were going to take up an hour. But here we are, almost exactly a full hour. Make sure you're following this on, youtube.com/Praetor Magic, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.com/Praetor Magic. Join us on the public Discord, which there will be a link to in the stream below, the video below, or the podcast description. Follow us over on twitch.tv/Praetor Magic. That way you can know when we go live. We are going live this Saturday at 9 p.m. for another episode of Commander Online. It's going to be a cool idea, a cool theme. It's going to be D&D themed, where some of us are going to be characters on in a D&D party, and we'll see how it works out. I know what I want to play, and it's very evil. I mean, evil. Wait, hold on. No, I'm a D&D character, right? Anyway, but yeah, until next time, that's all I really got for you guys this week. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave us a comment down below if you have a topic that you want to hear about or anything like that. Or if you're like listening to this in podcast world, make sure you can email us at praetormagic.com, praetormagic@gmail.com. If you have some cool ideas or something that you want us to address that maybe we've never addressed or other podcasts aren't addressing or something like that. Until next time, guys, that's all I got for y'all. Peace.